Welcome and thank you for standing by. Currently, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your host for today, Omari Wooden.
Thank you, Lisa, and good afternoon, everyone. As stated, my name is Omari Wooden with the U.S. Census Bureau. I'd like to welcome everyone listening to today's webinar on the Puerto Rico webinar series. Today is the third in a four-part series hosted by the U.S. Census Bureau. This webinar series was created to highlight data and resources available for Puerto Rico. In addition to the data, we're also going to provide an overview of our data tools that you can use to access this data. This data is helpful for businesses looking to possibly open a new business or expand their existing business by learning more about your particular industry. Economic development organizations also use this data to learn more about industries at different geographic levels. You can go to the next slide. These webinars will take place every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with the last one being November 13th, which will be next week. Each webinar is completely free and a great way to understand the resources that the U.S. Census Bureau has for you. Our next and final webinar will be Workforce and Small Business, which again will be held on November 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please be aware that after our speakers have completed their presentation, we will open up the webinar for a question and answer period. Also, we'll be using the question and answer feature to receive your questions. So at the bottom right part of your screen, you'll see three small dots. Once you click on those dots, you will have the option to ask your question. Some questions we're going to answer in this area, but other questions we'll save for the larger group, and we'll make sure that we share that with everyone. Lastly, each of these webinars will be recorded and available for you at a future date. Next slide. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our speakers, Linda Lee and Adam Grundy, who will be providing an overview of county business patterns and the Census Business Builder, again, highlighting data in Puerto Rico. At this point, I'll turn it over to Linda Lee.
Thank you, Omari. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today to talk about a popular program that we have called the County Business Patterns, which is commonly referred to as the CBP. So let's go ahead and dive right into looking at the CBP and the many wonderful statistics that's available to you from this program. The CBP is a program that releases statistics for employer establishments annually. So they would be businesses with at least one or more paid employees. Now, geographically, it covers businesses within the U.S., Puerto Rico, and the island areas. Now, one of the greatest appeal of the CBP is the level of details available for both geography and the industry levels. So you'll be able to get data on the number of establishments, employment, first quarter and annual payroll, not only at the county level, but also at the 6-digit level of the North American Industry Classification System, also commonly referred to as the NAICS code. Data are available by the legal form of organization and also by the employment size of the establishment. So we talked about geographic coverage at the county level. Here we see that the CBP data are available at other levels of geography as well. The statistics are available at the national level, state, metropolitan, micropolitan statistical area, combined statistical area, congressional district, and even at the zip code level. Now, when looking at industry coverage, the CBP covers most NAICS industries. There are some exceptions, however, and they are listed on this slide. They mostly revolve around the agriculture and public sector types of data, such as crop and animal production and the National Postal Service and so on. So with that being said, it's fittingly appropriate that the CBP excludes most establishments reporting government employees. So for example, statistics on libraries, which is a function of the government, would not be included here. So at the Census Bureau, we have many surveys, as you know, and sometimes even I myself use the term survey and program synonymously. With the CBP, however, it's actually not a survey. It's a program that releases yearly statistics The sources of the data comes from the Business Register, which is a database that contains the most complete and up-to-date information on business establishments. Now, in addition to this, it also uses programs from other business surveys, and it also includes the use of IRS administrative data. So this is important to know because if you're using the CBP data and you happen to come across a situation where you don't see the data, it's because we have to abide by the IRS publication standards to suppress the data if it doesn't fall within the guidelines. And I wanted to mention this because this is one of our more popular questions that we have received over the years as to why certain information isn't available. All right, so we've seen the program overview. Now let's take a look specifically for Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has over 20 plus years of CBP data, with the first release going back to 1998. Data are available at the state and county equivalent. And so earlier when we looked at the LFO, the legal form of organization establishments can be found for Puerto Rico, with the detailed data available from 2017 on. And the level of details for Puerto Rico is the same as the full CBP release, with data available at the 2 through 6 digit level NAICS code. And it also includes the same range of employment size. And we have many resources available to you, and all the resources are free, as Omari had mentioned earlier. This is an infographic that we have on census.gov. So starting in March of 2023, the CBP program area began producing ocean economy statistics using the 2019 and 2020 data. And this table contains CBP estimates for the ocean economy for the 5 U.S. territories, looking at annual payroll for the tourism and recreation industry. We see that Puerto Rico has about 83.7% of the ocean economy. Now, if you're interested in seeing more of these type products, I highly encourage you to check out census.gov. We have many visualizations that you can use. We also have stories related to the data that you can find on the census site. You can find those under the America Count section, and these are what we refer to as the stories behind the numbers. For this specific infographic, I've included a link here that'll lead you right to the image. So in addition to the static visualization that you can use, we also have interactive ones as well. This particular one was developed and is maintained by the CBP program area. Now, the first one was produced back in 2019. And in 2020, updates were made to include Puerto Rico and the island areas. And I highly suggest visiting this infographic with this link here if you're looking for quick access to high-level CBP data. So this data viz is the latest 2021 data, and it specifically looks at the number of establishments for selected industries. Now, I don't know, it may be a little hard to see the details here. Basically, there are 2 selections to be made here. The first is to select geography, which is right here. There's a drop down to select the geography. And the second is to select the NAICS sector. And as soon as you do that, the map will update based on the criteria that are selected over here. And the size of the blue dots are representative of the data, which then gives you the ability to visually see at a glance a national comparison. And if you hover over the blue dots, like a specific state, you'll actually see the data associated with that state. So now we've seen the program and had a peek at the ocean economy data. Let's see the data in action. Let's take a look at data through the lens of a case study. Since Puerto Rico has a large tourism industry, let's take a look at an example of opening a restaurant. To open our restaurant, we want to get a big picture of what's already out there, our competitors. We want to learn many things, such as the number of employees and even how much pay may be competitive. So, in our example, we are considering either opening a cafeteria, grill, buffet style restaurant, or a full service restaurant. Now looking at this table, we see that there are about 1,553 number of full service restaurants in comparison to 429 number of cafeteria and buffet style restaurants in Puerto Rico. We also have access to annual payroll data and number of employees for the week, including March the 12th. And for this particular illustration, let's say that we have selected to open the cafeteria and buffet style restaurant. So that's great. Next, we're going to want to look at historical data so we can learn how cafeterias and buffets have been faring for, let's say, over the past 5 years. So this graph shows a 5-year look at historical number of establishments for cafeteria and buffet style restaurants in Puerto Rico. So let's say that we discounted this drop between 2020 to 2021 due to the pandemic. Looking at this graph, we may feel more confident about our choice in opening the cafeteria style and buffet restaurant, seeing that between 2017 through 2020, it was a pretty steady market. And it looks like there may be room for us to build our cafeteria style restaurant since the market averaged about 451 number of establishments previously. This is definitely something worthwhile to add to our list in determining if we should open our business. But of course, if you think about it, if we already had a buffet style restaurant, we could potentially use this information to capitalize on opening another location or expanding our current location to accommodate for more. So then we may want to look at the industry as a whole from the employment perspective. Here we see that the cafeteria buffet style restaurant, a large amount of these type restaurants, 287 out of the 429 employ less than 5 employees. We also see payroll information and by employment size as well. And these type of information could potentially help in deciding the size of our business, figuring out a competitive pay rate for our employees as well. And of course, please note that we are able to provide the data and we cannot provide specific business advice. So this is a case study of an example where we looked at the data without other analyses that would be necessary to make final business decisions. So hopefully everyone is eager to dive into the data and discover even more uses for the CBP. And that brings us to how to get the data. The data are released approximately 16 months after the reference year. Right now, the most current release is 2021. And you can get the data from 2012 to present day on data.census.gov, which is our primary data dissemination platform. And on the API and the program's main page, the data goes back to 1998. And the neat part about the CBP is that the data is available on several data tools. You'll be able to find the data on the Census Business Builder, which in a moment, my colleague Adam will be doing a demo. You'll also find the CBP data on My Congressional District and My Community Explorer. Now with that, I'd like to toss the presentation over to Adam, who will be talking about and demonstrating the Census Business Builder data tool. Thank you everyone for your time and interest. All yours, Adam.
Thanks, Linda, for that great introduction. I'm going to go ahead and start to share my screen with, first of all, the slides that we have available for you guys today. So I'm going to be talking about a data tool called Census Business Builder, or CBB, version 5.3. And basically what this tool does is it overlays economic and demographic data directly onto a map, much like you can see on the screen right above you. So just a couple different things that we have available for you is that it's very easy to use. It's mobile optimized. We developed this tool through a company called Esri, ESRI, and it leverages existing census investments such as our Census API in order to pull the data directly from that Census API on a flow basis. And it uses the latest technology which is basically cloud-based, and it's all provided for free. So I'm going to be guiding us through not only an overview of Census Business Builder, but also providing a demo in just a moment. So before we had one two different editions that we had in Census Business Builder back in the day. So we had a small business edition, which you can see on the top left of your screen, versus, we also had a regional analyst edition, which is on the bottom right of your screen. And then we had the main edition, Census Business Builder 5.0, which came out a couple months ago. From there, we have a Census Business Builder 5.3 tour, which simulates the core functionality of the application. And what it will do is it will guide you through some of the different clicks you would do if you're either a novice user or somebody just wants to understand the key features of the data tool. So what you can do with a Census Business Builder is you can also take a look at the dashboard, and I'll show this on a flow basis, which is on the bottom left of your screen. We also have the custom region. We also have industry clusters and things like that that are populated on the screen that you can see from this thing that is in action. We also have different sections about the report will help you developing a business plan. So if you're looking to open up a business, much like Linda talked about in Puerto Rico, you could also do things using the reports, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Also, one of the things that's at your disposal is looking at a region builder. So you can also look at the municipios, or the county equivalent for Puerto Rico, by taking a look at building 2 or more different municipios for Puerto Rico in this particular case. And then finally, the data sources, much like Linda talked about in the beginning, we have county business patterns as our main data source. Non-employer statistics is available at some geographies, not at Puerto Rico, but we do have the economic census of island areas and the annual business survey for some of the business data that we would have available for that. We have imports and exports data from the International Trade Program, building permits data, and consumer spending data from Esri. That is only available at the national level, not at Puerto Rico for the consumer spending data. But I will demo next the Census Business Builder data tool. The way you can get there is by going to cbb.census.gov, or you can scan this helpful QR code that's right on your screen right now. Make this maximize just for a moment again, so you have a chance to scan that QR code if you want to follow along with me. Again, the URL is cbb.census.gov. Okay, so once you get to cbb.census.gov, you'll see this splash page that I mentioned before and the slides that I provided for us. So what you'll see is this take a tour option. And like I said in the slides, we have that take a tour option in order to simulate the core functionality of the data tool. You can either jump to one of the different things you were interested in doing, such as downloading the data or making your own region for different geographies that you want to do. Or you can back out of that and go directly to a geography. So you can see Puerto Rico is right in the middle of your screen. But to make sure that I'm selecting the right geography, I'm going to type in the geography that I'm looking for, which is Puerto Rico. From there, I can see the default is total population. So if I click on this little image of Puerto Rico and expand my dashboard, I can see the total population is 311,274 for the total population of Puerto Rico. Now, if I want to select different counties, I can simply go to the county level of geography, and you can see the different things will populate on the map. So after it's finished building it, I'm going to zoom in to one of our geographies, or a municipio, which is a county equivalent for Puerto Rico. So if I want to select this geography here, I can click once on it. You can see it's San Juan Municipio, Puerto Rico. You can see the population is now repopulated on the fly using our Census API. So 344,791 for San Juan. If I was going to look to compare that to different geographies, I can either bring up the legend on the bottom right of my screen by looking at either the color shade, which you can see the darker the color blue, the greater the population, versus one of the other counties that may be in the middle that I'm looking at. And if I select this municipio by clicking on it, little delayed on my screen, apologies. Arecibo Municipio is 88,017 for the total population. But now let's say I want to use this data in order to figure out if it's the best place to open up a business. So what I can do is I can change my variables over here. So if total population is not what I'm looking for, I can change my primary variable. From there, I'm going to go to business annual, all employer establishments, and select that variable. Okay, I can see the map behind it already starting to change. And also for my secondary variable, I'm going to go to business annual. And let's say I just want to see the total annual payroll of employers for my secondary variable. Okay, so this is for all sectors of the economy, and I will choose different industries in just a moment. But if I want to compare different geographies, I could take a look at where we started, which is Arecibo Municipio. Tells me there's 1,068 of all types of businesses in this particular municipio. If I want to compare it to San Juan, I can simply click on that example of a municipio over here, and that will go to San Juan Municipio. And then from there, you can either use the legend to either tell you by the color scheme how many employer establishments there are versus the total annual payroll, which is our secondary variable. So much like that dashboard that Linda showed for county business patterns, which it showed you the larger the circle, the greater the size of the number of establishments. The same would be in the case for the secondary variable here. The total annual payroll, the larger the circle, is the greater the payroll for these particular examples. So now I'm going to change my industry. The way I can do that is by going to the top left of my screen. I'm going to search for an industry. Much like Linda shared before about cafeterias and things like that, I'm going to use a similar example from our retail bakeries. So I'm going to start by typing in retail. You can see retail bakeries will pop up relatively easy. So while the map has changed on here, you can see a couple different things you can see by looking at Puerto Rico on a larger scale. If I choose retail bakeries, you can see some of the map has been grayed out. That means that either there's no retail bakeries at that location, or there's too few retail bakeries to publish the data on that particular NAICS code. And what that can mean is we would have maybe 3 or less, or even potentially smaller than that for the number of retail bakeries. It's very important from the Census Bureau to protect the individual businesses that report to our surveys and programs to make sure that we do not disclose who those individual bakeries or retail locations would be, or any type of business that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at San Juan, and I could either do this by 2 different ways. I can either go to region view by clicking on the region and this pencil button. And what I'm doing over here on the custom region is I'm going to change the name of this region. So if I want to call this Adams Bakery, this would show up in the report. And now I'm going to select the different geographies that I wanted to do for this particular example. So if I select this example for this geography, I'll know it's working because the red outline on the screen would actually show up. So I'm going to minimize this, hide this window real quick, so I think I might be blocking my screen real quick. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to create a region for this particular thing. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting one of these geographies, and if I see that it's not quite populating, I can always go back to the beginning and just double check again to make sure this is bringing up the right geography for me. So if I go to Puerto Rico and I select my county, and I'm going to call this Adams Bakery, select the pencil button. I'm also going to make sure my sector has not been recycled to anything other than retail bakeries. And I'm going to add that industry. From there, I know that retail bakeries has been selected. I'm going to go ahead and edit my region now. So San Juan has now been selected. So now I see that red outline in there. That means that this is working on the data tool for Census Business Builder. So if I'm opening up a retail bakery in San Juan, I also want to make sure that I'm also updating the data for different geographies that may be a better location for a retail bakery. So I'm going to select this municipio, this municipio, this one, and I'm going to click the pencil button. So one thing that you see on the region view on the dashboard is it tells us when we compare this municipio to San Juan, it tells us that the total number of establishments is actually greater for Bayamon municipio of 33 compared to San Juan of 30. And we also have different geo comparisons you can see as you scroll down on the right-hand side. We also have San Juan versus other different examples. So we also can change these based on the different geographies that I've selected here. So if I want to change this to Cantano, it would tell me for median household income how that compares to the different things here. And again, some things will be NA because of the level of geography that I've gone down to, or the NAICS code that I have available, or how many businesses there actually are available there too. So we see there are 20 employer establishments for San Juan, whereas there aren't any, or 0 to 2 for Catania. Now, if I want to really hone in on the power of the Census Business Builder data tool, I'm going to go ahead and click my report button. And the report button will tell us several different things about not only the economic statistics, but also socioeconomic characteristics and demographic characteristics. So I'm going to click this report button. From there, it tells us what we've selected. We know that we're looking at Adams Bakery, retail bakeries, and then it tells us, first of all, which of the different municipios I've selected or county equivalent. From there, I can take a look at the map, first of all. And all these different things, if I want to actually download the data, the export button down here can be conformed into a CSV file or from Excel, or a print PDF if you want to print this out as part of your business plan. As I continue to scroll down, I can see different things about the consumers and residents in Puerto Rico. And this comes from our American Community Survey 5-year estimates. If you're ever unsure about where the data is coming from in this report, always look at the top and also the bottom of these reports in order to give you a little bit more context as about where the data is coming from. So if I was looking for the percent of working age for a particular retail bakery, I can select that chart on the actual report, and it will repopulate on the right-hand side in order for me to either download that data or to print it as a PDF. And we do recommend that you print it as a PDF rather than doing a quick print, because it may not have the same functionality that you would see on a cleaner PDF. We also see socioeconomic characteristics when they're available for all 4 of these municipios that I've selected here. So you have things such as percent with no vehicles available, percent with 2 or more vehicles available, things about percent who drive alone to work or carpool to work or even walk to work, with 3.3% for the four municipios that I've selected. This could tell you a little bit more context about things such as the foot traffic that you would need in order to keep your business thriving or to open up a business. We also have housing characteristics that are available in this report. And retail bakeries, the business summary is not available at this particular one because of the level of geography that I've gone down to and the NAICS code that I've gone down to. So if I wanted to look and broaden my search, I can absolutely do that within the Census Business Builder data tool. If I want to take a look at a geographic comparison over time, I can look on the right-hand side of my screen to see how the establishments are either going up or down or staying the same from quarter to quarter. And this comes from our QCEW page, which is known as a quarterly census of employment and wages, which comes from our partnership with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can see up here. From there, you can see how Adams Bakery, the 4 municipios that I've selected here, compares to the complete state equivalent of Puerto Rico versus the United States for the geography that I've selected and also the NAICS code that I've done of retail bakeries. Building permits data is not available at this particular geography, but we do have the business totals that would be available for either things such as total employment of employers, the total annual payroll of employers, and non-employers is unfortunately not available for Puerto Rico, but we do have other key ratios in there, such as the average payroll per employee. And this data comes from the county business patterns that Linda talked about before, as well as our economic census, with the 2022 economic census going out starting next year, with the data coming out on a flow basis. So data for the island areas will soon be available for the 2022 economic census in the coming months to come. So with that, I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint so I can bring it back to Amari to see if we have any other questions or if there's any other things that you want us to share with you at this time. So I thank you for your time, and I'll kick it back over to Amari.
All right. Thank you very much, Adam and Linda. Appreciate you both for your great presentation. You can actually go to the next slide. So at this point, we're going to get ready to turn it over for question and answers regarding anything that we've discussed today. So again, if you have questions, to remember that we're using the question and answer feature, the 3 dots at the bottom right part of your screen. Once you click on those 3 dots, you'll then be allowed to then ask a question, and then I will then certainly pass those questions on to Adam and Linda. Because again, we want to make sure that, again, through Linda providing a case study, Adam walking us through also a case study, where we're actually getting to show you basically the data in action, just like they showed you from their presentation. One thing that I do want to highlight from this slide while we're waiting for questions to come in through the Q&A feature is that our next presentation, again, will be on workforce and small business. And as you saw through today's presentation, we've got so many different components of different data for Puerto Rico, whether it be establishments, international trade, workforce and small business. We also have tools. We're just trying to provide the entire suite of everything that we have for Puerto Rico. So again, next webinar will be on November 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So while we don't have any questions, Adam and Linda, I do want to ask you some questions, some things that have come up. So Adam, one of the things that I noticed when you were doing the presentation and you were pulling up some of the areas were gray.
Yep.
Can you kind of explain what that means when sections are gray?
Sure. So if I go back to the main map for Puerto Rico, I can see some of the things are not available or suppressed. So if I expand this out just a little bit to give you an example of why that may be, you can kind of see in different municipios over here, there might be either too few businesses that are available at that particular geography, or we have to suppress the data because we want to protect those individual businesses, like I mentioned before. So while it may show that there's no retail bakeries at that location, and maybe that's potentially an area that you would either like to grow or expand your business. If the right clientele is matching up for the business need for that, that would be one potential area of growth for that particular thing. But to answer your original question, Amari, if it's grayed out on the map, it means that there's no data available at the geography or the NAICS code that you selected, or it's suppressed in order to protect those individual businesses that report to our great surveys at the Census Bureau.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Linda, a question for you as it relates to county business pattern. And again, a great case study earlier. As an analyst that assists a lot of businesses with data user inquiries, what are some broad questions that you'll see sometimes coming from businesses that are just trying to find out about their industry and other businesses that are similar to their own? Are there other types of things that you had highlighted that you could mention?
Sure. So I had mentioned that our most frequently asked question for the county business patterns is the availability or unavailability of the data. Sometimes when you, depending on the industry that's selected and the geography that's selected, the data may not be publishable, or simply because of the Title 13 and 26 that we abide by in publishing for using the IRS data. Another one that I'd like to mention would be a lot of people really, really want to know the number of establishments for businesses like theirs. And that's very important simply because in trying to start a business, we would like to really just to understand the landscape of the whole area that we're trying to start a business in. So those are our two more popular questions, or frequently asked questions, I should say, when it comes to this program.
Mhm.
And Linda,
And one other point to add to that is a lot of times when people are writing business loans or grant proposals, that is one of the things that the bank or the financial institution will ask is, okay, hey, you want to open a barber shop, you want to open a bakery. First question they'll probably ask is, well, how many barbershops or bakeries are already there? How many people do you plan to service? And that's where some of these tools really come in. I'm sorry, Adam, were you going to add something?
yeah, I was going to also mention that part of the slides that Linda shared was about My Congressional District, a data tool that actually publishes data from the county business patterns at your congressional district. So if you're looking for data for, let's say a congressional district in the state of Maryland or New York, and you don't know what business data is available, county business patterns would be able to service that need for how many business establishments there would be at that congressional district level.
Cool. One thing, Adam, you do have a question that I'll mention. You could go back one slide is one thing that I want to do before I share that question with everybody. I do want to share the importance. Thank you all for those that are attending, not have attended, but that are attending today's webinar. Again, I'm gonna pass along a question in a second, but it is very important that we hear your feedback. Your feedback really helps shape our outreach and it also helps shape our training. So what we've done is Lisa has posted in the chat feature a link that will provide feedback to today's webinar. What were some things that we did great that you want us to keep doing? What were some things that we could have touched on that you would like to see possibly in future training? Also, too, it'll also give you an opportunity to provide your thoughts on additional topics that you would like to hear about. It'll only take a few minutes, but again, it'll be a big help for us. One of the feedback we had received in previous iterations was smaller content. So instead of having a super long webinar, just have smaller bite-sized pieces of material, which is certainly something that we took into consideration. So again, if you can take a quick second to fill out that evaluation, we certainly would appreciate it. All right, Adam, back to you. You can pull your contact information back up so people have questions. There was a comment that someone had noticed different types of industries or companies have more than one NAICS. Do you have any recommendation on selecting on multiple NAICS?
I guess from a Census Business Builder standpoint, I would recommend starting at a larger scale. So basically a 4-digit NAICS rather than a 6-digit NAICS, because when you zoom into either a lower level geography, the 4-digit NAICS is much more likely to be available for lower levels of geography. So we always recommend to start at the county level and kind of work your way down. And the same could be said for NAICS codes as well. The broader the scale, whether it's a 2-digit sector code or a 4-digit industry code, you get much more data available depending on your data needs. But again, we obviously understand that there are two different sides to that too. You might want to get down to a more specific level depending on your business needs or data needs. So just a couple of those things to consider while you're doing that. And while my contact information is up here, we also have our branch contact information up here. So if you're ever in need of either data or have a search that you're kind of getting frustrated with, we're here to help you.
Very good. One other question for you, both of you. Does the business information that you all have shown, does it include nonprofit organizations or only for-profit organizations?
So I'll take that question. So we do have nonprofit data that comes specifically from the statistics of U.S. businesses. With the county business patterns, I would have to actually reach out to our subject matter expert area just to verify if there is a specific breakout. But if you're looking for nonprofit, there is data there from a different program. But you can send your question to me or Adam or our branch information listed here, just so that we could verify the answer and give a fully correct answer on that.
Absolutely. And it may also depend on the industry that you're taking a look at too. So we want to make sure we get all the proper context in order to fully answer your question, like Linda is mentioning.
Correct. And I'll add to that as well that one of the things to keep in mind is there's a good chance that answer the question if that is yes, because, but to confirm that, as Linda and Adam has said, nonprofit is a tax designation. What we are discussing today are industry classifications. So you will have both nonprofits and for-profits in all different types of industries. So there's not a nonprofit industry because that is a tax designation that actually operates in pretty much every industry that exists. So great question. Thank you both for that.
Sure.
I will pause 1 minute to see if any other questions come in. Again, I will mention thank you all for those that have attended today's webinar. As you see, Linda and Adam's contact information are available on the slide. If you have more questions or if there's a question that came up after today's webinar has logged off, please feel free to reach out to them. As they both mentioned, their branch or the area they work in is the Data User and Trade Outreach branch. So you could always send a message to the branch as a whole if Linda or Adam aren't available, if they may be doing another webinar and they may not be able to follow up as quickly. But again, if you have any other questions, please make sure you follow up with them. Just checking, guys, one last time. I don't see any other questions. So at this point, I will thank you both for your time today on today's webinar. Actually, got a question that just came in. Who would we follow up with in Esri about data collected for states and not in Puerto Rico? So I'll actually answer this question. You two feel free to jump in. So again, Esri is a contractor that builds this tool. All of the information that is inside of the Census Business Builder is information that is coming from surveys that are already collected by the Census Bureau, or in some cases by other agencies such as Department of Labor. So that is not really a question for Esri. That's really a question for us at the Census Bureau, because the Census Bureau tool is made up of majority of government data. Now, if it's specifically something for the Esri data, then yes, because there's information that I believe Adam had mentioned where it talks about consumer spending. That would then be specifically a question for Esri. Adam, go ahead.
Yep, I was going to say, yeah, the consumer spending data is the main thing that we purchase from Esri. So if they have a question about that, they can either contact our branch or me directly, and I'll make sure it gets to the right point of contact.
Yep, great question. All right, Adam, Linda, again, I would like to thank you guys for a great presentation. Thank you again for the case studies. I always think it's impactful when we can walk through our tools, walk through our data sets to actually give a real example. And I think you guys did a great job with that. So again, thank you both for exceptional overview today. Again, as I just stated, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to Adam or Linda or their area, and they can certainly respond to your data user questions. Thank you again. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Lisa, who will close us out.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.